Honoring the life of Hulk Hogan. Thousands of people pay their last tribute, wrestling world in mourning. Thousands gather to honor the legendary Hulk Hogan in a powerful farewell. WWE fans, legends, and celebrities unite in an emotional tribute to one of wrestling's most iconic figures, Hulk Hogan. In this video, we take you inside the heartfelt memorial, filled with rare footage, touching speeches, and never-before-seen moments from the life and legacy of the Immortal One. From his unforgettable matches to his influence outside the ring, this is a tribute worthy of a legend. The Florida sun hung low in the sky, casting golden rays over the horizon as the line of mourners stretched for blocks. Men, women, children, fans young and old, gathered in solemn silence, many draped in red and yellow, the colors synonymous with an icon. Hulkamania wasn't just a wrestling phenomenon, it was a cultural revolution, and now, on this heart-wrenching day, the world had come to say goodbye. Inside the Grand Memorial Hall, the atmosphere was heavy with emotion. WWE banners hung alongside American flags, and at the front of the room stood a massive portrait of Hulk Hogan, arms flexed, mustache proud, eyes beaming, forever immortalized in that signature pose. The casket, draped in custom-made Hulkamania colors, rested on a platform surrounded by towering flower arrangements. Roses, sunflowers, and hibiscus, all handpicked to reflect Hogan's Florida roots and larger-than-life personality, surrounded the base like a protective wall. As fans filtered in, many wiped away tears, pausing to bow their heads. Others whispered memories, stories of childhood Saturdays watching Hulk drop the leg on Andre, or that iconic moment he slammed the Giant at WrestleMania 3. This wasn't just a goodbye. This was the end of an era. The final chapter in a story that had shaped the dreams of millions. The crowd inside included wrestling royalty. From legends who once stood across the ring from Hogan, to those who grew up idolizing him. Ric Flair, The Undertaker, John Cena, and Stone Cold Steve Austin sat in the front row, their expressions stoic, their eyes red. Even Vince McMahon, frail and quiet, had returned from seclusion to pay his respects to the man who arguably made WWE a household name. When the lights dimmed and the tribute video began to play, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. From grainy 1980s footage of Hogan storming into the ring to thunderous cheers, to more recent clips of his quiet moments with fans backstage, every frame was a reminder of the heart, charisma, and intensity he brought to everything he did. And in between those moments were sound bites, his voice echoing across the speakers. "What you gonna do when Hulkamania runs wild on you?" The crowd smiled through tears. It was that signature growl, filled with energy, defiance, and passion, that had become a war cry for generations. And now it rang through the halls one final time. The first to take the stage was Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Dressed in a sharp black suit, his eyes watery but voice steady, he spoke not just as a wrestling peer, but as someone whose very career was paved by Hogan's legacy. There would be no Rock, he began, without Hulk Hogan. He taught us how to electrify. He taught us how to own the moment. But most of all, he taught us that it's not just about the fight inside the ring, it's about the fight you take with you outside of it. His words stirred the room. Many nodded, recalling Hogan's countless charity appearances, his work with children's hospitals, his visits to veterans, and his devotion to those who looked up to him, not just as a wrestler, but as a hero. Stephanie McMahon followed, sharing intimate stories from behind the curtain. She spoke of Hogan's warmth, his willingness to take the time for even the newest employees backstage, and how he would always remind her father to let the people feel something. That was Hogan's core philosophy, connection. Whether slamming giants or hugging kids in wheelchairs, he made sure every person left believing they mattered. Next came Triple H, who recounted the awe of watching Hogan backstage as a young wrestler, how the locker room would fall silent when he entered. Not out of fear, but out of reverence. He talked about how, even in his final years, Hogan never lost his passion for the business. He loved this. He lived for this, he said. He was the kind of guy who could have a broken rib, a torn knee, and still want to go out and give the people one last leg drop. The Undertaker, stoic as ever, stepped up without a script. He simply stood before the casket, his head bowed. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, in a low, gravelly voice, he whispered, "Rest in peace, brother," and walked off. That was all he needed to say. Fans watching the service online saw the broadcast cut to rarely seen footage, Hogan's first ever WWF match, moments backstage with Macho Man Randy Savage, and emotional segments with his family. One particularly raw clip showed Hogan holding his newborn granddaughter, laughing as she tugged at his mustache. "You're already stronger than Andre," he whispered to her, the room behind the camera erupting in laughter. The tribute continued with clips of celebrities who had been touched by Hogan's life. Sylvester Stallone appeared on screen, speaking about how Hogan helped bring life to Thunder Lips in Rocky III. "He wasn't just a character," Stallone said. "He was a force. You couldn't write that kind of presence, you just pointed the camera and let him be." Other celebrities followed: Arnold Schwarzenegger, Mike Tyson, Shaquille O'Neal. All praising Hogan's influence not just in wrestling, but in pop culture at large. "He didn't just cross over," Shaq said. "He kicked the door off its hinges." But perhaps the most emotional moment came from Brooke Hogan. The daughter of the legend stood at the podium, visibly trembling, her voice cracking as she clutched a small yellow bandana in her hand. "He wasn't just the immortal Hulk Hogan," she said softly. "He was my dad. And he was my hero." She spoke of the late-night phone calls, the way he used to sing to her off-key, the way he would always walk with a limp, but never admit to being in pain. "He carried the weight of 1,000,000 fans on his back," she said. "But at home, he just wanted to be our rock." As she stepped away, the crowd stood in a spontaneous standing ovation. Not for her, but for the man behind her. Outside the venue, thousands more fans had gathered to hold candlelight vigils. Some brought vintage action figures. Others held homemade signs that read, "Thank you, Hulk." The energy felt sacred. Strangers embraced. Old friends reunited. People shared stories of how Hogan had helped them through bullying, depression, hard times. To many, Hulk Hogan was more than a wrestler. He was a source of hope, of strength, of unwavering spirit. In the days following his death, murals had popped up around cities, vibrant tributes capturing the larger-than-life presence he embodied. And WWE had announced plans for a dedicated Hogan Legacy wing inside their Hall of Fame, filled with memorabilia, unseen footage, and a 3D hologram tribute fans could interact with. As the service drew to a close, the final eulogy came from someone unexpected: Shane McMahon. He hadn't been seen on WWE television in over a year, but he returned for this moment. With tears streaming down his face, he read a personal letter Hogan had written just weeks before his passing. "I don't fear death," it read, "because I lived. I really lived. I wrestled giants, traveled the world, met the wildest people you can imagine. But the best part of it all was hearing someone say, 'You helped me.' If I did that, even once, then I've done enough." The room was silent. Even the cameras seemed to hold their breath. Then, as the service came to an end, the familiar tune began to play. "When it comes crashing down and it hurts inside," the crowd rose again, many singing along through tears, raising their arms in that classic Hogan pose, as if the legend himself was there, urging them to stay strong. The music echoed like a farewell wave, powerful, proud, unforgettable. And as the lights dimmed and the casket was slowly wheeled out under a single spotlight, it felt as though the spirit of Hulkamania left with it, not vanishing, but spreading. Into the fans. Into the hearts of those who loved him. Into the very foundation of wrestling history. The immortal one was gone, but his legend would never die. Outside, the Florida air had turned cooler. Night had fallen, but the glow from thousands of candles lit up the streets surrounding the memorial. Fans stood shoulder to shoulder, some in silence, others chanting old catchphrases, their voices cracking under the weight of grief. "Hogan! Hogan! Hogan!" they cried, the echo bouncing off nearby buildings like thunder in tribute. For a moment, time stood still. Not just for the fans who had gathered in person, but for those watching from around the world. News helicopters hovered above. Reporters spoke in hushed tones. Every major network, sports and otherwise, had dispatched crews to cover the memorial, calling it one of the most emotional farewells in sports entertainment history. CNN described it as a moment of national nostalgia. ESPN dubbed it the end of an American myth. But for the people in attendance, it wasn't about headlines. It was about memory, legacy, and love. Social media platforms exploded with tributes. #ThankYouHulk trended for 72 straight hours, surpassing even major political news. Wrestlers, actors, and fans from every generation posted their favorite memories, photos, and heartfelt messages. One post by Sami Zayn read, "I never got to wrestle Hulk Hogan, but I got to hug him once. That moment stayed with me longer than any match." Another by Kevin Owens simply said, "He made me believe in heroes." At WWE headquarters in Stamford, Connecticut, flags flew at half-mast. A massive banner of Hogan was unfurled across the building's glass facade, reading, "Forever the Immortal." Employees, many of whom had worked with Hogan through different eras, gathered for their own internal remembrance, sharing personal stories over coffee and tears. From production crew to marketing interns, everyone had a moment when Hogan had offered a smile, a fist bump, a word of encouragement. Because behind the bravado, behind the flexing and the bandanas, was a man who truly cared. And nowhere was that clearer than in the city of Clearwater, Florida, Hogan's hometown. The mayor declared the day Hulk Hogan Day, and local businesses adorned their windows with posters and banners. The famous Hogan's Beach Shop became a makeshift shrine. Fans left flowers, action figures, championship replicas, and handwritten notes taped to the front doors. One message read, "You made my childhood magical. I love you forever." Another said, "You taught me to fight back when life hit hard. Thank you, brother." Back at the memorial site, the procession had moved to a private burial, with only close friends and family in attendance. The mood was quieter now, more intimate. Linda Hogan, his ex-wife, arrived holding a single red rose, followed by Brooke and Nick, Hogan's children, both of whom struggled to hold back their emotions. A soft breeze rustled the trees as they took their seats beneath a large white canopy tent, placed over a peaceful patch of land surrounded by palm trees. The burial was brief, but not rushed. Each family member took a moment at the casket. Brooke placed the bandana she had clutched during her speech on top. Nick added a small photo of their family from a trip to Venice Beach. Linda whispered something no one could hear. And then the lid was closed, forever sealing away the physical presence of a man whose spirit had transcended the ring. In one final symbolic gesture, Vince McMahon, accompanied by Triple H and Stephanie, placed a replica of the original WWF Championship belt atop the casket before it was lowered. The same belt Hogan had first hoisted above his head after defeating the Iron Sheik. The belt that started it all, and just like that, the ground swallowed a legend. But not a legacy. As the family left the site, fans across the world tuned in to the WWE Network, which aired a 24-hour live stream titled Hogan Forever. It featured rare interviews, full matches, behind-the-scenes footage, and newly recorded testimonials from those who had crossed paths with Hogan throughout his incredible career. In one segment, John Cena shared a never-before-told story of a backstage encounter in 2002. "I was a rookie. Barely known. Hogan was at the tail end of his run. I was nervous, and he walked up to me, smiled, and said, 'You've got it, brother. Never forget why you're doing this for them.' That stuck with me every day of my career." Stories like that flooded the broadcast, from camera operators, ring announcers, drivers, even caterers. They all had a Hogan story. The Immortal One had made a lasting impression on everyone, not because of the spotlight, but because of the way he treated people in the shadows. And while fans grieved, they also celebrated. In Tokyo, a flash mob of fans performed Hogan's signature entrance routine in Shibuya Crossing, drawing a crowd of thousands. In London, Trafalgar Square was filled with fans holding up posters that read, "Say your prayers, take your vitamins, believe in legends." In Johannesburg, fans gathered in local arenas and watched old Hogan matches on giant outdoor screens. The world had lost a hero, and the world responded with unity. Even rivals and critics came forward with tributes. Bret Hart, who had a famously complicated relationship with Hogan, tweeted, "We had our differences, but there's no denying what he did for the business. He made it bigger, louder, and unforgettable. Rest easy, Hulk." CM Punk, who once blasted Hogan in public interviews, simply wrote, "He was the measuring stick. The rest of us just tried to keep up." And in what may be the most emotional tribute of all, Randy Orton, quiet and rarely sentimental, shared a video of himself walking into an empty WWE ring late at night. No audience, no lights, just silence. He walked to the center of the ring, looked up at the rafters, and said, "Thank you, Hulk," before doing Hogan's signature ear cup pose. The video instantly went viral, but the grief extended beyond wrestling. Musicians, athletes, actors all weighed in. Hulk Hogan had been more than a WWE superstar. He was a cultural monolith, a Saturday morning cartoon hero, a guest on the A-Team, a serial mascot, a Grammy-nominated performer, a symbol of the 80s and early 90s. He was what childhood looked like for millions across the globe. In the days that followed, WWE announced the creation of the Hulk Hogan Foundation, dedicated to supporting children's hospitals, anti-bullying initiatives, and veterans programs, all causes close to Hogan's heart. The announcement included seed funding from major donors, including John Cena, The Rock, and even Tony Khan from AEW, who said, "Today is not about rivalry. Today is about respect." Meanwhile, fans began calling for WWE to rename WrestleMania's annual Battle Royal in his honor. Rumors swirled that at next year's WrestleMania, the main event may feature a 10-bell salute followed by an entire card paying tribute to Hogan's legacy. There were talks of installing a permanent statue at WrestleMania Access. A bronze replica of Hogan, mid-flex, eyes looking toward the future. Back at the Hogan family home, friends gathered privately. The scene was intimate, pictures of Hogan lining the walls, his iconic feather boas neatly folded in a display case. A handwritten note taped to the refrigerator read, "Gone to the ring in the sky. Love you all, HH." Brooke Hogan posted a video later that evening. Just her in her father's old gym. A single dumbbell in her hand, tears on her cheeks as she whispered, "Still training, Dad." It captured hearts instantly. It reminded fans that behind the persona was a family grieving a real loss. And yet, as painful as this chapter was, it became clear Hulk Hogan had achieved something rare. He had outlived the shelf life of fame. He had transcended wrestling. He had become legend. And now, in his absence, his myth only grew stronger. There's something haunting and beautiful about a final farewell this grand. It forces the world to look back, not just at the person, but at what they represented. For some, Hulk Hogan was childhood. For others, resilience. For millions, he was the first hero they ever had. And now, as those same people wiped tears from their eyes, they also smiled, because heroes never really die. They live in memories. In moments. In legacies. As the candles outside the memorial burned into the night and the final tribute aired on WWE programming, Hogan's voice came across the screen one last time. "Don't be sad for me, brother. Be strong. Be wild. Be kind. And most of all, believe in yourself." That's the real power of Hulkamania. And with that, the screen faded to black. In the weeks following Hulk Hogan's passing, something unexpected began to happen. Fans from all over the world started making pilgrimages to Florida. Clearwater Beach, once a vibrant tourist hub for sunseekers and surfers, became something else entirely, a place of reflection. A sacred site. The heart of Hulkamania, the front of Hogan's Beach shop, already flooded with tributes during the memorial, now looked like a living museum. Every day, new items appeared. Vintage t-shirts from the 80s, hand-drawn sketches of Hogan performing the leg drop, Childhood photos of fans meeting him at meet and greets, and letters, hundreds of letters, placed gently on the steps, many wrapped in plastic to protect from the elements. One man drove from Texas with his son, saying he couldn't let the boy grow up without paying respect to the man who made Dad believe in superheroes. A woman from Tokyo brought a rare Hogan action figure from 1985, placing it beside a candle, then dropping to her knees in prayer. "He helped me when I was bullied," she said softly, tears falling. "He gave me courage." The outpouring was unlike anything wrestling had seen before. It wasn't just fans grieving, it was generations. Grandparents explaining to their grandkids why this man mattered. Parents telling their children about a time when the world seemed simpler and Hulk Hogan stood for everything good and strong. Clearwater officials responded by announcing the creation of Hogan's Way, a pedestrian-only memorial street lined with murals, statues, and audio installations where fans could walk through the life of Hulk Hogan. Each stop would feature different eras of his career: the early territory days, the rise of Hulkamania, the iconic WrestleMania moments, his brief Hollywood foray, his return to WWE, and even his personal battles off camera. It wouldn't shy away from the controversies because, as the mayor put it, Hulk Hogan wasn't perfect. But he never pretended to be. And that's what made him real. Back in Stamford, WWE executives were hard at work planning the most ambitious tribute in company history. WrestleMania 42 was just months away, and already, it had unofficially been branded WrestleMania Immortal. Every match would begin with a Hogan quote on the big screen. The ramp would be designed to look like the red and yellow lightning of his ring gear. Every ticket sold would include a commemorative armband that read, "Train. Say your prayers. Believe." The main event, rumored to be a mega tag team bout between Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes versus Seth Rollins and The Rock, was slated to end with a 10-bell salute and fireworks spelling out the words, "Hulk lives forever." But before that grand spectacle, WWE had something quieter planned. On the next episode of Monday Night Raw, fans tuned in expecting the usual explosive intro. Instead, they were met with total darkness. Then, silence. No commentary. No opening theme. Just an empty ring under a single spotlight. The Titantron slowly faded in to reveal a message: "Tonight, we don't perform. We remember." One by one, superstars emerged. Randy Orton, Becky Lynch, Drew McIntyre, Bianca Belair, Rey Mysterio, Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, The Miz, Charlotte Flair, Rhea Ripley, Roman Reigns. They encircled the ring without saying a word, each wearing a black armband marked with HH. In the center of the ring stood Triple H, holding a mic, not as the COO, but as a man paying tribute to a friend. He was the first, Triple H began. The first to show the world what this industry could be. The first to bring wrestling into living rooms across the globe. The first to make little kids dream of becoming larger than life. And tonight, in this ring, we thank him not just for what he did, but for what he made us feel. He paused. His voice cracked. He made us believe in heroes. After the speech, the bell rang 10 times. Fans in the arena stood, many weeping openly. Cameras panned the audience. Children with Hulk Rules signs, adults in replica shirts, elderly fans bowing their heads in reverence. And when the bell tolls ended, the arena lights rose, and on the screen appeared a simple phrase in gold letters: "Hulk Hogan, 1953, forever." That moment became one of the most replayed segments in WWE history. The emotional toll wasn't just felt by the audience. Backstage, morale shifted. Hogan's death had reminded everyone, from the top of the card to the performance center recruits, that time was short. That moments matter. That passion has an expiration date if not lived fully. Seth Rollins reportedly gathered younger talent after the tribute and said, "This is your sign. Don't wait for the right time to be great." Hulk never did. The women's division responded by pitching their own tribute match, a 20-woman battle royal dedicated to Hogan's message of belief and strength. Nia Jax, who had often clashed with management over booking, reportedly broke down in tears after being allowed to cut a tribute promo. He made space for big bodies like mine to be fierce. That means more than I can explain. Elsewhere, AW dedicated a segment of Dynamite to Hogan as well. Though Hogan never appeared in AW, Tony Khan released a statement acknowledging that without Hogan's groundwork, there would be no AW. Every wrestler, every fan, owes him a debt of gratitude. Chris Jericho, another icon from Hogan's era, led a crowd chant of Hogan. Hogan. Hogan, before performing a cover of Real American with Fozzy in front of a roaring crowd. Meanwhile, media outlets continued their deep dives into Hogan's career. Netflix fast-tracked a documentary originally scheduled for late 2026. Titled The Immortal, The True Story of Hulk Hogan, it promised to explore both the light and the dark, the rise, the scandals, the redemption. Producers confirmed that it would feature never-before-seen footage, including a 2023 sit-down interview with Hogan in which he openly reflected on his mortality. "I'm not afraid to go," he had said, "because I know what I've left behind." It wasn't just wins. It was belief. It was the idea that someone like me, a broke kid from Tampa, could become a hero to millions. If that's my legacy, then I'm ready. And perhaps the most touching gesture came from the fans themselves. Across the country, and even in countries like Australia, India, Mexico, and the UK, wrestling schools began holding Hogan Nights. Nights dedicated to training the next generation in the spirit of Hulkamania, training with passion, discipline, and heart. One young wrestler in training posted a now-viral video showing him reciting Hogan's infamous pre-match ritual before his match, shadowboxing in the mirror, slapping his chest, pointing upward. The caption read, "He made me believe I could become more than what the world told me I was." Back in Clearwater, the Hogan family, though shaken, had begun hosting weekly remembrance dinners. Open to the public. Free of charge. Brooke called them Hulk tables. Every week, dozens of strangers sat together, shared stories, laughed, and grieved. "Dad wanted us to stay connected," she explained. "And that's what this is about. Community." Hulkamania wasn't a solo act, it was us. As days passed into weeks, the ache didn't go away, but it became lighter. Softer. Replaced by pride. Gratitude. Legacy. And so, as the calendar edged closer to WrestleMania, fans everywhere began preparing for what would be the most emotional show in company history. People booked flights months in advance. Shirts were printed. Chants rehearsed. Posters painted, because they knew this wasn't just the end of a man, this was the celebration of a myth, one born in the ring, but destined to live forever. The sun rose over Las Vegas on the morning of WrestleMania 42. But this wasn't just another WrestleMania. This wasn't just another chapter in the annual saga of wrestling's grandest stage. This was sacred. This was final. This was Hulk Hogan's WrestleMania. The city shimmered in red and yellow. Digital billboards across the strip displayed rotating images of Hogan throughout the decades. The body slam heard around the world, the wild-eyed stare at the Ultimate Warrior, the fierce NWO rebirth, and the heartfelt reunion with fans at his Hall of Fame induction. Each image was overlaid with one message: the immortal lives forever. By noon, over 90,000 fans had descended upon Allegiant Stadium, and millions more tuned in around the world. The venue had been transformed into a living monument to Hulkamania. The entrance ramp was modeled after a classic wrestling ring, bordered by LED ropes glowing gold. Above the stage, a massive screen shaped like a championship belt played a live reel of Hogan's greatest moments, as Real American blared across the stadium every 20 minutes, like clockwork. It wasn't just a theme song. It was a hymn. Before the first match, the crowd was asked to rise. Not for the national anthem, but for a Hulk Hogan national tribute. A massive hologram of Hogan, in full 1980s regalia, feather boas, muscles gleaming, appeared at center stage. He flexed once, pointed to the crowd, and said in a pre-recorded message, "What you gonna do when Hulkamania lives through you?" The stadium erupted. Following that, the lights dimmed. 10 of WWE's top legends stepped forward, forming a line on the stage. Ric Flair, Shawn Michaels, Edge, Rey Mysterio, John Cena, Randy Orton, The Undertaker, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, and finally Roman Reigns. All stood in silence as the Titantron displayed a cinematic 10-bell salute. And when the final bell struck, fans in every section raised handmade signs, all coordinated ahead of time, to form a massive human mosaic that spelled out, "Thank you, Hulk." But the most powerful moment came next. A custom video played, narrated by none other than Morgan Freeman, detailing the journey of Hulk Hogan from his early days as Terry Bollea, the aspiring musician and bodybuilder, to his days training with Hiro Matsuda, to the breakout moment in Madison Square Garden when he dethroned the Iron Sheik. Freeman's voice gave it the gravity of a presidential eulogy. He was the man who slammed a giant, the hero who made children believe, the thunder that rolled through every locker room he walked into. Hulk Hogan was not just a wrestler. He was America's first modern myth. The tribute continued, seamlessly blending archival footage with fan-submitted clips and behind-the-scenes moments. One clip, never before seen, showed Hogan quietly crying backstage after his WrestleMania X8 match with The Rock, mouthing, "Thank